Physical environment. An estuary is defined as a transition area between the river and sea. Seawater flows up the estuary channel during the rising tide and flows back down during the falling tide. All this caused by gravitational tides. Higher density seawater mixes with lower density seawater. This mixture makes a very fertile environment for a booming ecosystem. The chemical environment. Salinity varies spatially within the estuary from closer to that of freshwater or seawater. Salinity varies with the rise and fall of the tide. Nutrients that mix in from the river make it one of the most productive biomes.
Biotic factor. Producers include photosynthetic organisms like salt marsh grasses and algae, including phytoplankton. Heterotrophs include an abundance of worms, oysters, crabs, and many fish species that live there that humans consume. Many marine invertebrates and fishes use estuaries as breeding grounds or migrate through them to fresh water. They are also crucial feeding areas for waterfowl and some marine mammals.
Abiotic factors. San Francisco Bay. San Francisco has the largest estuary in western North America. Water from the Sierra Nevada mountains and the San Joaquin and Sacramento rivers flow down into the San Francisco Bay Area, where it meets the sea. The temperature ranges from 10 to 27 degrees Celsius throughout the year. Salinity measures from 6 to 0.5 PSU, practical salinity units.
The Bay Area consists of several different individual habitats. Tidal flats. Biotic factors. San Francisco Bay, where there is daily tidal action. Vegetation is algae, sea lettuce, and eelgrass. Invertebrates include worms, diatoms, and shellfish. Many fish species feed at high tide and at low tide. Those left over are the food for birds such as the American avocet. Tidal marshes also has daily tidal action but stays at 6 to 12 inches. Vegetation is vascular and suitable for the environment, but differs depending on sediment, erosion, and other factors. Brackish water. The brackish environment contains several types of vegetation to match its slightly saline water environment, like cattails, tules, acai brush. As you hit the mid-marsh, spike rush, Baltic rush, silverweed, and saltgrass arrive. And as you rise higher, common pickleweed, saltgrass, gum plant, and alkali heath are found. Tidal salt marsh. Vegetation includes Pacific cordgrass and pickleweed are found that are able to filter out the high saline content. Dike wetlands managed marshes. Managed wetland areas blocked off from water to add additional land for agriculture. Managed marshes are diked marshes used for wildlife habitats. Vegetation includes common pickleweed, saltgrass, alkali brush tules, and cattail. Riparian forests, the area that separates a creek or river from surrounding vegetation. Geography varies depending on what body of water it surrounds. A large area for flora and fauna as it contains common trees like the California bay laurel, western sycamore, cottonwood, box elder, willows, and oaks. Some of the understory can consist of elderberry, wild rose, and California blackberry. Densely populated wildlife because it can be the habitat for animals such as the California newt, Pacific tree frog, ring-necked snake, ornate shrew, broad-footed mole, deer mouse, opossum, striped skunk, raccoon, black-tailed deer, and a variety of birds which include scrub jay, song sparrows, woodpeckers, great horned owl, and tree swallows. Willow groves grow near sporadic spots of water, provides small areas of shade and damp for many amphibians and their avian predators. Grasslands. Flat lands used for grazing purposes. Grass is suitable for cattle. Home to many small animals along with the burrowing owl, kestrels, hawks, various reptiles, and some amphibians. Oak woodlands. Found on hillsides surrounding estuary. Includes oak trees and shelter for much wildlife. Plants such as madrone, manzanita, coffee-bearing currant, poison oak, pink snowberry, California blackberry, and cream bush are found here. Wildlife varies from southern alligator lizard, gopher snake, red-tailed hawk, California quail, peckers, scrub jays, California ground squirrel, and black-tailed deer, as well as others.
Habitat issues. The San Francisco estuary suffers from rampant human pollution, such as from plastic bags, styrofoam cups, cigarette butts, and human household trash. The estuary absorbs over 500 million gallons of treated wastewater each day, along with the large quantities of storm and floodwater. Human impact has irreversibly changed the way that the estuary functions. Pollution from upstream, also filling and dredging from various marshes, have disrupted estuaries worldwide. Population interaction, mutualism, a symbiotic relationship in which both parties benefit. Amphipod and pickleweed are examples of this. Pickleweed provides shelter and protection for the amphipod, and the amphipod in return provides extra nitrogen from excrement and waste, which allows greater growth of the pickleweed. Another example would be parasitism, a symbiotic relationship in which one organism, the parasite, benefits at the expense of the other host by living either within or on the host. An example of this would be larval tapeworms, which infect the striped bass in San Francisco Bay. They survive by creating lesions along the fibrous tissue of the bass, and they develop into adult from the striped bass nutrients.
Food chain. This is a common food chain found in the San Francisco Bay Estuary. This food chain suffers from biomagnification, the increasing concentration of a substance, such as a toxic chemical, in tissues of organisms at successively higher levels in a food chain/food web. PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyl, is a large group of related industrial chemicals commonly found in the fatty acids of fish, dairy, and meat products, but fish and shellfish contain the highest levels of PCBs, which can potentially harm the health of people who eat fish and shellfish regularly, such as increasing the risk of cancer. It can come from soil and sediment, which is then washed into the bay. The highest PCB levels in California are commonly found in white croaker, a fatty fish. The Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, OEHHA, in California advises on recommended intake levels of certain high-risk fish species and how to lower the amount of PCBs in fish through cooking, etc. Here, from the sediment, PCBs rise into the phytoplankton at a lower concentration of PCBs, but then travel up the food chain/food web up to the large croaker, small croaker, shiner perch, or jack smelt, which then includes higher levels of PCBs in their fatty acids.
Immigration/emigration. The Pacific bluefin tuna, a popular fish for sushi, have the largest geographic range. As while many bluefin tuna spend their entire lives in the western Pacific Ocean, some migrate to the eastern Pacific Ocean, usually during their juvenile years of life. A portion of the Pacific bluefin tuna end up migrating through the San Francisco Bay Estuary, where they come in and then move on towards Hawaii, and catches of bluefish tuna are occasionally caught in the bay. Overfishing of the species is especially alarming, as it causes the overall population to drop 96% in recent years, 90% of which are young juveniles that are unable to produce yet, and they are still being fished in their main spawning grounds today.
Invasion of the non-natives. In the San Francisco estuary, there has been an issue with Ariochare sinensis, more commonly known as the Chinese mitten crab. Discovered in San Francisco habitats in 1992, this species has already migrated hundreds of miles up the Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers, burrowing into riverbanks and levees, causing irreplaceable erosion and structural damage, destroying rice plants, consuming nutrients meant for native species, and most alarmingly, carrying a parasitic strain that could cause lung diseases in humans. Keystone species. Olympia oyster, Ostrea conchifila, an oyster species that was considered extinct until found in the San Francisco Bay in 1999 due to several decades of pollution from mining sediment, industrial discharge, and raw sewage. Once so abundant, their jagged shells created a beautiful white beach stretching the length of the bay's shore. The extinction of this important oyster species would eventually lead to a complete crash of the bay's ecosystem. Without the filtration of the Olympia oyster provides, less sunlight would reach the eelgrass colonies, which would in turn die off. Therefore, without the protection of the eelgrass, the Pacific herring runs would collapse, brant populations would plummet, and the populations of other species and microorganisms such as shrimp, crabs, invertebrates, etc. would ultimately crash as well.
Endangered species. The salt marsh harvest mouse. The salt marsh harvest mouse is a small 2.75 to 3-inch mouse that is said to have evolved from the western harvest mouse. It can tolerate high salinity in its environment, as shown by its preferred brackish environment and its favorite shelter, the pickleweed plant. The lifespan of this animal is about a year, and the females only produce 1 litter per lifespan, making it a semi-parity species. Habitat loss due to commercial housing developments around the San Francisco Bay Area that fills dikes and changes the salinity of the environment. This changes the environment to one uninhabitable by this organism. Due to the changes in the environment, this animal is becoming dangerously close to extinction.